Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to Volume 10 of Step Through the Ropes. In the year 1994, the World Wrestling Federation's head honcho Vince McMahon was facing a steroid trial and had to make a lot of changes as the year went on. One of the most shocking and successful changes was Bob Backlund snaps. Now, for those who don't know, Bob Backlund was a dominant WWF World Champion from the late 1970s to the early 1980s. And my understanding is, in I think some point in 1984, Vince McMahon wanted Bob Backlund to turn heel and feud with Hulk Hogan, who was like in his first run as world champion, and the rock and wrestling connection had really taken off, and it was like a whole new era had been rushed in after Backlund was dethroned by the Iron Sheik in 1983. Unfortunately, Backlund refused to turn heel, ended up leaving the World Wrestling Federation since he was known for being a positive role model of, encouraging children to stay in school, visiting sick children in hospitals, and he didn't want to tarnish his image by becoming a heel in professional wrestling. And in 1985, I forgot if he went off to work for Jim Crockett or he went back to the late Vern Gagne in the AWA. But as the years went on, Backlund rarely wrestled. But then in the year 1992, there was like little vignettes of Backlund talking about his experiences from the past. And I don't know if it was really, getting any where they were seemingly going with it or getting anywhere. But then in 1993, Bob Backlund was entered in the Royal Rumble match. Backlund entered the match second and was one of the last three competitors in the matchup. And my understanding, due to Backlund's performance and the crowd reaction, it pretty much saved his job, because I'm guessing Vince McMahon was thinking of letting him go up until that point. And basically, Backlund spent like the rest of 1993 basically putting over the top talent at the time. I mean, he was defeated by Razor Ramon at WrestleMania 9, and surprisingly, the fans were actually chanting Razor. I don't know if they were planning to turn Razor Ramon into a babyface, but they ended up doing it eventually. I don't know if that might have triggered off the idea to turn him into a face. Backlund also lost a King of the Ring qualifying match to the narcissist Lex Luger. Backlund was also defeated on Wrestling Challenge by Doink the Clown. I forgot who else I know he lost to Shawn Michaels. He lost to... He did lose to Shawn Michaels, and I forgot who else had defeated him in 1993. But then in the year 1994, at a Superstars taping in Ocean City, Maryland on July 3rd, Backlund challenged then world champion Bret the Hitman Hart for the championship, and the match aired on July 30th of that year. They had a really great matchup. Backlund had Bret down for a small package and thought he had won the match, but then Bret Hart small packaged Backlund and pinned him to win the match and retain the championship. Backlund approaches Bret for a handshake, and they shake hands, and Bret stands up on the second rope. He's holding the belt up to the crowd, and Backlund at one point, he looks to the crowd, and he has a very look of frustration on his face. Bret approaches Backlund to shake hands with him, and instead Backlund slaps Bret right in the face and clamps on his cross-faced chicken wing, which Backlund, I believe, invented years earlier, and took like a bunch of referees, and I don't know if any of the agents / producers had come out to pull Backlund off, and Backlund was looking at his hands as if he was shocked by his own actions. My understanding is that there was a plan to bring back Papa Shango, who later became Kama Mustafa, Kama the Supreme Fighting Machine, the Godfather, real name Charles Wright. and that he had put a curse or a hex on Backlund to go crazy like that. But because as time went on, Backlund got this I guess this crazed old man or old fashioned man character over. The idea, I guess, to bring it in, Papa Shango was scratched. Now, of note of this very taping, again, the match was taped in Ocean City or Ocean County, Maryland, on July 3rd, and the match aired July 30th. Of note, after this very taping, referee Joey Morella, the son of Gorilla Monsoon, was tragically killed in a car accident at 30 years old. Now, I don't know if it was live or taped, but I know it aired. It was on that Monday, August 1st. Backlund was in the guest of Jerry Lawler's King's Court, and everybody was expecting an apology, and Backlund kept going on, and he was at one point talking about when he lost the championship in 1983 that he was never beaten since he did not submit to the Iron Sheik, and man, I mean, they really tried so hard to make this guy, I guess, seem like he was out of touch with society by that point, because I do remember an old WWF magazine that I had where they had some facts about Bob Backlund. One of them saying that his mother never once heard him raise his voice. Second was that Backlund's daughter never heard him swear. Backlund had a MasterCard since the 1970s and never paid a red cent interest. Backlund would only give an autograph if a fan could recite the presidents of the United States in succession. And I forgot what the fifth fact or non-fact was that they mentioned in the magazine. And, basically they really, really shoved Backlund and pushed Backlund. I mean, to the point he put the chicken wing on, I forgot the young man's name, but he was like a writer for the WWF magazine. And Backlund put the chicken wing on him, and I can't remember that kid's name. Eventually, and that's where the late Randy Savage, who was commentating on Raw that time, he and Vince McMahon even came over and tried to pull Backlund off the magazine writer. Backlund had been wanting to get a shot at Bret Hart for the world title, another shot at the world title, and I forgot who Bret encountered Backlund, and I forgot it was maybe on Raw one night. Bret looked into the camera and saying, "Oh, Bob Backlund had his title shot." And I don't know if it was the debut of Action Zone, which aired in late October 1994, when Bret had his final match, seemingly with Owen, where Owen's last opportunity to win the world title, or he would never get a shot at Bret again. Bret got on the microphone, and he's saying, I'm clearing the desktop for you, Bob Backlund, and they ended up having what turned out to be a very good match for the world title at Survivor Series 94 in San Antonio, Texas, where Backlund had the late Owen Hart in his corner with a white towel, which they say was the same white towel that was thrown in when Backlund lost the belt in 83 to the Iron Sheik, while Bret had his corner, his brother-in-law, the late Davey Boy Smith, with a pink and black towel to throw in if necessary. Now, along the way, Backlund had put the chicken wing on Adam Bomb, Lex Luger, even his former manager, the late Arnold Skaaland. Now, the match did take place, and everyone said Owen gave an Academy Award-winning performance and outsmarted the family and convinced his mother, the late Helen Hart, to throw in the towel because Davey had supposedly knocked himself out hitting the stairs, and Helen threw in the pink and black towel, enabling, because Bret would not submit to the chicken wing after being in the move for about 5 minutes, maybe longer. And Backlund had become the world champion again. And Backlund, he did an interview with Todd Pettengill later in the pay-per-view. And Backlund was like using these super intelligent words you could probably find in a Webster's dictionary or even in encyclopedias. I don't know if those babies are made anymore. And Bob Backlund looked into the camera saying, folks, you now have a champion that your children can emulate after. And he went so far to say he was going to scrutinize everyone, homogenize everyone, pasteurize everyone. And at that point, I'm thinking, oh no, he's going to make milk out of us, out of everybody. And I remember after the promo aired, which ended with Backlund saying, because I feel like God, when he held up the belt, the late Gorilla Monsoon, who, by the way, this was the last time Gorilla commentated a pay-per-view, and it was with Vince McMahon. And after that promo, Gorilla says, we're in trouble, Vince. And 3 nights later, in Madison Square Garden, Backlund was defeated for the world title in 8 seconds by Big Daddy Cool Diesel. And around for the rest of 94 and early 95, Backlund got rematches with Diesel and failed to win the title back. Backlund was among those who interfered in Diesel's match with Bret Hart at the 1995 Royal Rumble. Later that night, Backlund, en route to the ring, was attacked by Bret Hart. And then finally, Backlund got in the ring, was eliminated by Lex Luger. Then Backlund ended up facing Bret Hart in an I Quit match at WrestleMania 11, which was refereed by the late Roddy Piper. Bret reversed the chicken wing on Bob Backlund, and Piper had the live microphone in the ring, and Backlund never said the words "I quit." So I don't know, something went wrong there, and Bret has stated that was like one of the worst matches he ever had. And, you know, at that point, Backlund's status or his character had seemingly began to take a turn for the ridiculous. Because after losing the I Quit match to Bret at WrestleMania 11, Backlund says, "Do you see the light?" And we didn't know what he was talking about. And then I forgot how many weeks went by. They show him down in Florida during spring break, trying to, educate the college students out there, just trying to unwind and relax. He took his nice sports jacket off, tried to cover up the young ladies that were in bikinis. And he had I don't know if that was sunblock on his nose, even though he was wearing his Pee Wee Herman suit and all. Eventually, they said that, Mr. Backlund has an announcement to make on Monday Night Raw, Monday, May 15th, which was the night after the very first In Your House pay-per-view. And Backlund's announcement was that he was contemplating running for the presidency of the United States of America. And I knew from day one it was a phony campaign, even though one particular friend of mine actually believed it. And then a short time after that, Backlund started to, doing like little vignettes claiming what he would do if elected president, that he would, he was going to, like the criminal system, and also he was he was going to abolish rock and roll and have everyone listen to Bach and Beethoven and other classical music figures, which did not sit well with Man Mountain Rock, who did matches on house shows with Bob Backlund. One point I think it was on Monday Night Raw, where Backlund noticed Man Mountain Rock's guitar, and let's just say this right here was Man Mountain Rock's guitar, and I'm Backlund. And he grabs it, and he's acting like it smells, and then he's throwing it all over the floor, and he's screaming, "It's all garbage! It's all garbage!" And then Backlund, I guess the day of King of the Ring 1995 in Philadelphia, Backlund's talking about all the history of that very city, and he's got himself in his hand a Philadelphia cheesesteak. And Backlund was saying, "Oh, this will not do. We are going to have to put a big juicy carrot in here for vitamin C and beta carotene." Oh, I'm hurting my throat impersonating this man. And at one point, Bob's like gazing at the camera, and I guess he didn't know he was on or something. Because when I saw the videotape for the first time, he's gazing. I'm thinking, I laughed. I was like, "What the heck? He didn't know he was on?" I could have imagined somebody off camera saying, "Mr. Backlund, you're on, you're on." And then he just was seeing the crowd campaigning with the fans. And he even actually appeared at the third In Your House pay-per-view in Saginaw, Michigan, where he comes out and he introduces Dean Douglas and stayed at ringside for Douglas's match with Razor Ramon. Backlund also appeared at Survivor Series 95, and he's sitting in the crowd with Todd Pettengill and this Bill Clinton impersonator. And they kind of like, I forgot what he was saying. And Backlund at one point says, "For one thing, when you address me, sir, it's Mr. Backlund to you." And I can't remember too much of that. And then near the end of it, and then I think at a Superstars taping, Backlund ended up putting the chicken wing on Jim Ross for not referring to him as Mr. Backlund. But then the year 1996 arrived. Backlund was in the Royal Rumble match, entered the ring third, and he was the first man eliminated by the late Yokozuna, the same man who eliminated Backlund from the Royal Rumble 3 years earlier. And then Backlund, I guess, his wrestling appearances on television became like infrequent or less and less. But then the next thing Backlund did, he kept coming on Superstars and announcing that, "Oh, I've found the man that will defeat Shawn Michaels for the World Championship." And, we're wondering who could this be? And even though at the time there was a radio program in Long Island called Get in the Ring, and they gave it away saying it was going to be Fatu, was going to shave his head and call himself the Sultan. And both Backlund and the Iron Sheik were managing the Sultan. And my understanding, Vince McMahon himself came up with the idea for the character. But unfortunately, things didn't work out too well for the Sultan character. He was on the pre-show at Survivor Series 96 in Madison Square Garden. His team was defeated. Sultan lost to Rocky Maivia at WrestleMania 13. And then I think it was Cold Day in Hell. He defeated Flash Funk. And he wasn't really seen much. Sultan wasn't on pay-per-views much. And Backlund, I don't think, was seen too often in 1997, as just the Iron Sheik was left. Iron Sheik was left managing the Sultan until the Sultan was Fatu, who later became Rikishi. I believe he was sent down to Power Pro Wrestling or Memphis Championship Wrestling when they realized the Sultan character had gotten stale and such, and they didn't know what to do with him. And then back in the year 2000, Backlund appeared again in the WWE, hanging around with Kurt Angle, and it turned out that Backlund was the one who made it possible for Angle to defend both the Intercontinental and European Championships at WrestleMania 2000, which Angle lost without getting pinned. When, upon hearing that, Angle put Backlund in the chicken wing, and I don't think Backlund was really seen much as a character on WWE TV until years later, but I haven't kept track of that. But folks, what do you think of Backlund's heel run from 1994 on? Do you think that maybe if he did this character 10 years earlier in 1984 and feuded with Hulk Hogan, you think it would have been more interesting then? Would have gotten over more than it did in 94? Let me know in your comments, folks. And I still can't believe this is the 10th Step Through the Ropes video I've done. There'll be more, folks, but let me know what you thought on Mr. Backlund.